Welcome back to Pagitt Radio on AM 950. It's got kind of a African beat to it, doesn't it? That little song. I mean, it's kind of kind of had me in a tribal mood right there. That sort of thing. I liked it. That's a little bumper music, as we call it in the industry here, from Bruce Springsteen's album Wrecking Ball, a song called "We Take Care of Our Own." If you like it. Hey, Brian. Brian is our assistant producer around here. Brian, you're not from Minnesota, are you?
I am from Minnesota.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. I thought for some reason I had connected you with New Mexico.
I've been there the past 4 years or so.
You've been living in New Mexico. That's why your automobile in the parking lot has that New Mexico license plate. And I got a real crush on New Mexico, so I always notice that kind of thing.
Oh, it's great.
But then I heard the way you pronounce Minnetonka in your in the ad there that bears your voice, and I thought, boy, he says it perfectly. Like that's how a Minnesotan says it. People who are non-Minnesotans, like John, our friend from the South here, he can't say Minnetonka properly.
How do you say it, John?
Oh, I'm not gonna.
I don't know.
I'm not gonna shame myself.
Yeah, he might be able to repeat it right now if he hears a proper pronunciation. Minnetonka, but people like Minnetonka or Minitonka, they always get it. They always get it wrong. And yours was flawless. And I thought, boy, you have assimilated quickly into the language set. But it's because you're from here.
Yep.
Hey, we're going to start a new little segment called Actually. It's like a Cripes Coin. You got to be kidding me, but it's a little commentary on, well, actually things aren't the way you think they are.
I just want to bring a little clarity to
a topic.
Yeah, to conventional wisdom.
Like a classic example is when people say, you know what you ought to do? We ought to figure out how to work smart and not hard. Mm-hmm. You know what, actually? No, you shouldn't. We got enough people nosing around to try to figure out how to not work hard.
Yeah.
You know, we should have more people work a little harder, not smarter. Because usually what that means is you're going to try to get something for nothing. So, you know who did a lot of that? Bankers. Bankers figured out how to, investment people. The Wall Street figured out how to work smarter, not harder. It's called criminality.
I'm actually a fan of that term.
I know you are. Yeah. But just the last half.
Okay, so Doug, the media and news has been consumed by this Trayvon Martin case.
Yeah, tragic case
where this teenage boy was walking home from a friend's house, and he was stopped and had an altercation with a watch commander, a self kind of imposed
neighborhood watch guy
named George Zimmerman. And George Zimmerman, who was packing a pistol, something happened, and apparently George Zimmerman was able to take advantage of what's called the Stand Your Ground law, statute 776.013 in Florida, that allows you to have a gunfight on the street if you feel that your life is in danger.
Right.
You know, I am so grateful that we live in Minnesota where there are not laws like that, Doug.
Yeah. Well, actually, it gets a little worse in Minnesota.
Oh, my.
I mean, we don't have a stand your ground law. We have a you have to retreat before you can use violence law. I was on a jury and we convicted a guy because of this very law. So I've become accustomed to it. I've become familiar with it. Mm-hmm. So in the state of Minnesota, you have to retreat. You have to take advantage of the possibility of retreating before you can use any physical harm. Mm-hmm. In other words, someone punches you in the nose, and if you can retreat, you have to retreat before you can use physical harm on the assailants. Very interesting.
Good for me to know.
But we do have a silly law, as it turns out, that I stumbled onto this week that falls under statute 629 in the Minnesota statute. I've put a link for it on the Facebook page of Doug Pagitt Radio. We were having a little conversation that brought up this Trayvon thing, and it brought up the fact that I was checking out of Costco, the place where you buy stuff in bulk, and you have to give them your receipt when you check out so they can check you. And I didn't have my receipt; I left it at the cash register, and the woman would not let me out of the building. And it made me ask the question: well, if I just tried to walk past her, what would she do? Could she? Could she grab me? Could she hold me? And I'm like, I don't think a private citizen in the state of Minnesota can stop another citizen and take over their life. I don't think you can stop me I don't think you can variably kidnap me, right? I don't think you should be able to do that. Because what stops one citizen from just acting like they're the police, right? You can't just go up and stop somebody.
Start shouting, citizens arrest.
Citizens arrest. You can't stop someone and take them. Well, as it turns out, yes, you can in the state of Minnesota.
Really?
We don't have a stand your ground law, but you know what we have?
What?
Private citizens can arrest other people law. 629.37. I'm going to read it to you. I'm stunned. We're going to call the Attorney General in a couple of weeks. So the next couple of weeks of the shows are going to be some pre-records because it's Easter and I'm going to be in Guatemala. But I'm going to call the Attorneys General in the state of Minnesota. I'm going to ask the Attorney General, why do we have this law, and what do we have to? Would you actually enforce this? Here's how it reads. Get a list. This is 6.2930. Now, if you're driving, you might want to pull over to listen to this. Not only is it so enrapturing that you might not pay attention, but you might doze off listening to legislation being read.
You might doze off, or your mind might get blown.
Here we go. The category of 629.30: arrests by whom made, says the statute. An arrest means taking a person into custody that person may be held to answer for a public offense. Arrests include actually restraining a person or taking into custody the person who submits. Subsection 2, who may arrest? An arrest may be made by, then there are 4 categories: a peace officer with a warrant, a peace officer without a warrant, a peace officer in the United States Custom and Border Protection or the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services without a warrant, and number 4, a private person. A private person can arrest someone in Minnesota just like a police officer.
So Lars Larson can just choose to arrest somebody.
Next section, 6.629.31, time when an arrest can be made. An arrest for a felony or gross misdemeanor may be made on any day or any time of the day or night, but an arrest for a misdemeanor can't be made on Sundays or between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. All right. So I think that's hilarious, right? So you can just not on Sundays. Private citizens can arrest someone, but not on Sundays.
And and misdemeanors you get to sleep in.
Yeah, right. Don't bother someone's sleep. They're going to have a long day the next day.
That's right.
So unless you have a court order or the person's found on a public highway or street on Sunday,
then they're fair game.
Then you can't. But jump up in the yard if someone's going to run down the street yelling "citizens arrest" like Barney Fife. All right, 629.37. So this is now 6 subsections later. When a private person may make an arrest. It's going to detail when you can make an arrest. Here's what it reads. A private person in the state of Minnesota may arrest another person for, number 1, a public offense committed or attempted in the arresting person's presence. If I see you doing it, I can arrest you. This is terrifying to me. That we're going to have guys running around, women running around, arresting one another. Point number 2.
You could have gotten arrested for using that family bathroom by that woman today.
Totally. She could have just said, I think that's against the law. Number 2, when the person arrested has committed a felony, although not in the arresting person's presence. So if I've committed a felony, when a felony, point number 3, has in fact been committed and the arresting person has a reasonable cause for believing that the person to be arrested has committed it. I don't have to watch you commit the felony. I just need to have a reasonable, as it puts it, a reasonable cause for believing that you've committed a felony. I can arrest you. I can hold you and take you to the police, myself, as just a guy in the state of Minnesota. Isn't this terrifying?
Yeah.
It gets worse. Listen to this. 629.38, the next subsection. A private person to disclose cause of the arrest. Listen to this statute, how it reads. Before making an arrest, a private person shall inform the person to be arrested of the cause of the arrest and require the person to submit. The warning required by this section need not be given if the person is arrested while committing the offense or when the person is arrested on pursuit immediately after committing the offense. So if I think you've committed an offense, a misdemeanor or a felony, and I start chasing you, I don't even have to tell you why I'm arresting you because it's immediately following it. I can just chase you down. This is terrifying, that a public citizen can take capture of another citizen for their own reasonable cause for believing. Next part of the sentence reads like this, and this is section 629.38. If a person has committed a felony, a private person may break open an outer or inner door or window of a dwelling house to make the arrest. If before entering, the private person informs the person to be arrested of the intent to make the arrest and the private person refuses admittance. I can go up to your house if I have reasonable cause to believe that you've committed a felony and declare from the outside you are under arrest. And if you don't open the door, I can kick in your door. or your window. And then if you hide in your bedroom, I can kick open your bedroom door and arrest you. Isn't this bizarre? Now, all of this, in every one of these statutes, there is a listing of the previous versions of the law. These laws, almost word for word, are exactly as they were in 1905, the first rendition of laws in the state of Minnesota. We haven't changed the law in our current Minnesota statute on a private citizen arresting another person since 1905.
111 years, or 6 years.
I mean, isn't this something?
Wow.
A private citizen deputized because they have reasonable cause to believe a felony is committed or saw you committing a misdemeanor get to arrest you. So it goes on then to say, well, if there's a merchant, yes, in fact, a merchant, anybody who's running a business can detain you if they believe that you have shoplifted from them. This is so out of, I still cannot believe I'm reading these words.
Yeah.
Section 629.3837 is really bizarre to me that in our statute it reads this way. So we're going to try to get a little clarity on this. Maybe I'm reading the law wrong about who can make these arrests, but it seems to me that it's pretty clear that a person in the state of Minnesota can arrest another person if they think they've committed a crime. So I get that we don't have a stand your ground law here, but we also deputize private citizens to go about doing the business of police work. Now, I think we should be informing the police. I like the if you see something, say something notion.
Yeah, right.
But I don't like the idea at all that if another citizen thinks that I've committed a crime and they have reasonable cause by their determination, not by a judge determining it, not by a grand jury, not by a warrant, not by any kind of investigation, but if there's reasonable cause, and maybe this is always the out, right? Well, that wasn't reasonable cause. And then it goes on to say, well, no private citizen can be held at fault if they have no merchant or employee or peace officer is criminally, civilly liable for any action under subdivisions 1 or 2 if the person arresting, if their action is based on reasonable cause. Reasonable cause according to whose standard?
Right. Because they don't even need to see you commit the crime to go after you.
Yeah, they just have to have reasonable assumption that this happened. I find that to be fascinating that we haven't updated this law since 1905. Now, there's not that many statutes in the Minnesota. I mean, you just look this up. It's right. The link is right there. It's listed right on the state legislature website. It's number 629, and then the subsections. You jump into .38 if you want to get to the stuff we read today. And I find it to be just bizarre. So, are we better off than Florida with a stand your own ground law? Well, actually, maybe we're not. The fact that we go around telling people you can arrest someone.
Kick in their door.
And kick in their door if you're in pursuit. Like you say, hey, that guy's got a video camera and I think he stole it from that store or that person there. They broke into my house. You just run across the street. Or if you think they're dealing drugs, just kick their door in. If you have reasonable cause that they're... It's a good thing we don't know about all the laws in the state of Minnesota. AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, DougPagittRadio.com. Back after the break.